antics, welcome to my channel. I hope you are well today because we have another DIY project to get stuck into. In this week's video we are looking at how to make your own DIY sleep mask / eye mask, whatever you would like to call it. Now it's not just any old sleep mask, this one is inspired by Audrey Hepburn / Holly Golightly's sleep mask in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's. Now that is one of my favourite films and she is my favourite actress as well. So I thought I had to have a go at making something that is inspired by her. So that is where this lovely DIY sleep mask has come in. Now it is super comfortable and it looks super stylish and pretty, I think anyway. And now it's not a direct replica of the one in the film, but it is an inspiration of it, or it has been inspired by it, should I say. So yes, if you would like to have a go at making your own sleep mask inspired by Breakfast at Tiffany's, then let's get crafting. To make the Breakfast at Tiffany's style eye mask, you are going to need some turquoisey / Tiffany blue coloured satin type material, some wadding or a protective pillowcase, which I will get onto later in the video, a darker satin fabric if needed, some gold trim, so that would be two types, there's like a gold ribbon and one that is a bit more of a fancy design, some matching threads, your pins and some elastic. So first we are cutting out a strip of material to make the tunnelling for the elastic to go around the back of the eye mask. Now this is 90 centimeters by 5 or 6 centimeters. I tend to lean towards more the 6 centimeter one because I do like to trim the strip down once I've cut it down with some pinking shears, and this does shave off a few millimeters of the material, so always aim a bit higher and you can reduce it by using the pinking shears. So once you have measured it, you want to cut it out. I'm using a rotary cutter here and it cuts a nice smooth line, but because of this fabric it does fray quite a lot, so pinking shears is a great way to help prevent this. And then you want to cut out the shape for your eye mask. So I am using a pattern from Tilly and the Buttons. Now this is a free eye mask pattern and I will link it below if you want to use the same one, but there are tons around on Google if you do want to find a different one. So yes, what you want to do is double over your turquoise material so that you get two parts to this, pin it to it and then cut it out. These will form the front and the back of the eye mask. So we are using a pillow protector as a batting for this because I have figured out that it is very similar and a much cheaper alternative if you don't have any batting lying around. Now you can pick these up in the local pound shops and things like that, the cheaper shops, and it is a perfect alternative, so that's why we are using it to add some extra padding to the eye mask. So you want to follow the same principle but only have one layer of this batting / pillow protector. So place on the template, pin it to it and cut it out again. Finally, you want to cut out one more layer of the eye mask in a dark material. I have gone for a black satin here. Now if your material is a bit thicker and it's not letting a lot of light through, then you probably can skip this step, but I just wanted to add a bit more of a darker material to make sure that the eye mask fully blocks out the light. Set the eye mask pieces to one side and grab your strip of fabric, giving this a quick iron or press over just to release any of those creases that might have formed when you were cutting out the strip. Then you want to fold it in half, right side to right side, so you have both wrong sides showing, and pin this together so we're making like a tunnel here. This is very similar to how you make the DIY scrunchies, which I will link in the card above if you want to check out that video as well. Then it's time to head over to the sewing machine and get stitching. To make the tunnel you just want to sew a straight stitch all the way along the open edge, making sure that it's not too close to the edge, because if there is any fraying in the material, then this could affect your seam and you don't want it to unravel or unpick whilst you're wearing your lovely eye mask. So make sure that you backstitch each end at the start and finish to give some added strength when you are pulling the tunnel right side out, and sew a straight stitch all the way down. And then to turn the tunnel slash tube right side out, you want to place a safety pin in one end of this, only on one side, you don't want to block the gap. Securing this and then bringing the end of the safety pin down through the inside of the tube, which will then bring the material along with it, making it so that you can push it through to turn it right side out. Now, because this is like a satin silky material, it makes it so much easier to do than that of some other materials, and if you keep looking you'll see how this goes. So now it is time to measure out our elastic, and this will differ from person to person because it depends on the size of your head. So all you need to do is take it around the back and sort of measure where the eye mask would sit, so up to your temples slightly here, and then that's how much you know of the elastic you are going to need. So around the head. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose, so make sure you measure it enough. There we go. So once you have the correct size elastic for your head, you then want to place a safety pin in the end of this and begin threading it through the tube that you have just turned right side out. Now usually the tube is a lot longer than the elastic, unless you have a very big head, which I'm guessing you won't. You just need to thread the elastic through. Once the end of the elastic that hasn't got the safety pin in comes to the tube part, you might want to just pin this in place, because it'll be so much harder to find this piece of elastic or this end of the elastic in the tube than the end with the safety pin on. So make sure you pin it in place so you don't lose it. Once the elastic is fully thread through the tube, you then want to just secure each end by sewing a straight stitch, making sure you backstitch at the start and end of each seam. Then set this aside and move on to the eye mask. So you want to take a piece of the turquoise material and the dark material and place them on top of each other, making sure that they are wrong side to wrong side, pinning these together and basting or doing a base stitch where the pins are, just to secure them together. Now obviously if you are not using any of the dark material to make the eye mask a bit darker, then you can skip this step, but this just holds them together when you are sewing them together. Then repeat the same process with the next turquoise piece of material and the batting or pillar protector. I found that using a base stitch just holds them in place when you are sewing the whole thing together, because the layers do move if they are not secured in place, and it just saves on using lots and lots of pins. Then you want to take the elastic ribbon piece for the back of the eye mask and pin this on place on the front part of the eye mask on the right side, so the bit that will be showing once the mask is put together. Place this where the notches indicate on the pattern, and then place the back piece of the eye mask over the top of this, sandwiching it so everything is right side to right side. So you want to make sure the two turquoise parts are meeting each other in the middle, and pin this in place because we are then going to sew all the way around. Now to make it easier, you can base stitch the elastic piece onto the front of the material as well, so it stops it moving. And then you just want to do a seam all the way around the eye mask, leaving a large gap on the top part of the eye mask, so a bit where it's going to sit on the top of your eyes near your eyebrows. This is so you can turn it right side out, and it can be quite tricky, so do take it carefully and slowly when going around the curves, because it can be quite difficult. Also, don't forget to backstitch on each start and end of the seam where the gap is going to be, because this will strengthen that bit of gap when you're tugging it to the right side out. Before turning the mask right side out, you just want to give it a quick press around where the seam part is. This will just iron out any creases and make sure that it does actually fold out correctly. And then if you have any pinking scissors, just go around the edges and trim off any excess. If you don't have any pinking shears, then you just need to cut some notches where the curves are to make sure that it does turn out smoothly and you haven't got any of the bulky fabric showing. Once the mask is the right side out, you just want to give it a quick press again, pressing out the seams and making sure the open gap pieces are tucked in to make it easier to close up. To close up the gap, you just want to use a hand sewing needle and some matching thread and use a ladder stitch or an invisible stitch, but as you can see, I am not that great at hand stitching, so this is a little bit messy, but it doesn't matter. You can also use a top stitch to close this up as well if you don't want to use hand stitch. And then it is time to place a bit of a trim around the edge of the mask. This one adds a little bit more flair to the mask and two, covers up that terrible hand stitching that I did of closing up the gap. So I am hand stitching this on again. You can do this by sewing machine, but I found it quite difficult to keep all the layers together, so hand stitching it with some glittery thread added a nice effect. And then to give it the proper breakfast at Tiffany's look, I am adding another decorative trim around the edge of the front of the mask. Now this is a bit more fitting with the style from the film, and I will link it below. I think I got it from Amazon if you want to use the same one as me. So that took me forever. I am a rubbish hand sewer, but I think it doesn't look too bad. I think the edging has turned out quite well, and I think it's going to make a really nice eye mask. And we just need to add the finishing touches to make it truly the Breakfast at Tiffany's face eye mask, whatever you want to call it. Oh, I've got a bit of mascara on it. Yes. Now on the Breakfast at Tiffany's mask in the film, she has got some like 3D effect to the mask where it's like raised eyes with a gem underneath. I found it really hard to do this with the satin material, so I've gone for a glittery gold ribbon just to give where the eyelashes would be sort of effect. So I cut some, I think there are 6 centimeters in total of this glittery ribbon, and then folded them in half on each other and made them stand out by sewing along one edge of this so that they are a bit more 3D, if you get what I mean. Now if you want to get these perfectly in place, you can use a tape measure to properly measure out, but I sort of, if you would pardon the pun, just eyeballed it of where I wanted it to go. And then to finish off the eyes, I started making an eye shape with the glittery thread and using a bit more of an embroidery style hand stitch, just going from one side of the eyelash to the other in a curved fashion to make it look a bit more like a closed eye, as if you were asleep, and then finishing off the look with a sewn on eyebrow. And again, these are a little bit mismatched because I eyeballed them as well, but I really liked the effect afterwards of these, and I think it does add a nice decorative touch. And plus, not everybody's faces are symmetrical, so why should your eye mask be as well? Once the eyebrows have been stitched on, then the Breakfast at Tiffany's style DIY sleep mask is complete. to make your own DIY Breakfast at Tiffany's inspired sleep mask. I think this has turned out fabulous and is super stylish. It might not be quite direct replica of the one Audrey Hepburn wears in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but it is still stylish nonetheless and perfect for getting those 8 hours of beauty sleep that we all need to get. Now, please do let me know in the comments below what you thought of this DIY, whether you'll be giving it a go, and if you have any hand sewing tips, I would love to hear them because I am still quite a shocking hand sewer despite how lovely this has turned out, so I would love to know any tips, so pop them down in them comments. Don't forget to hit the like button if you have enjoyed the video and subscribe to keep up with more of my crafting antics because there's a new video coming every single week with lots of different makes that I have been coming up with. And check out my blog link below because there's always a ton more information over on Ames's Antics for you to have a gander at. And with that said, I will see you in next week's video.